All rise. Please be seated. Department 1 of the Superior Court is now in session. Judge ROYCE BALMAS proceeding.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Calling the case of the people of the state of the Philippines versus Dean VIRGO. Are both sides ready?
Ready for the people, Your Honor.
Ready for the defense, Your Honor.
Clerk, please swear in the jury. Stand and raise your right hand. Will the jury please stand and raise your right hand?
Tatayo.
Do you each of you swear that you will fairly try the case before this court, and that you will return the true verdict according to the evidence and the instruction of the court, so help you God? Please say I do. I do. You may be seated. Will the jury please stand and raise your right hand? Do you each of you swear that you will fairly try the case before this court, and that you will return the true verdict according to the evidence and the instruction of the court, so help you God? Please say I do. I do.
Yes, I do.
You may see.
Go. The first thing that happened in a trial is called opening statement. This is when each attorney can tell the jury what evidence they will present during the trial. The deputy DA goes next.
And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant has been charged with the crime of driving or towing a car belonging to someone else without the permission of the owner. The evidence will show that a 2004 Corvette was stolen on the night of February 8th, the night that the defendant was arrested driving the stolen car. The defendant's fingerprint were on the keys used to steal the car. The evidence I present will prove to you that defendant is guilty as charged.
Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, under the law, my client is presumed innocent until proven guilty. During this trial, you will hear no real evidence against my client. You will come to know the truth that MAGTIBAY was just riding in a car stolen by someone else. After finding out that the car was stolen, MAGTIBAY was just trying to do the right things by returning the car to its owner. Therefore, my client is not guilty.
Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, under the law, my client presumed innocent until proven guilty. During this trial, you will hear no real evidence against my client. You will come to know the truth that defendant's VIRGO was just riding in a car stolen by someone else. After finding out the car was stolen, VIRGO was trying to do the right thing by returning the car to its owner. Therefore, my client is not guilty.
After the opening statement, witnesses are called to testify about what they know about the case. Sometimes the attorney wants to show physical things like a weapon or a photograph to the jury. These things are called exhibits. The jury may only consider an exhibit if the judge admit the exhibit into the evidence. When they meet to decide if the defendant is guilty or not guilty.
The prosecution may call its first witness.
The people call the owner of the car.
Please raise your hand. Do you promise that the testimony you shall give in the case before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Yes, I do.
Tayo ka, pre.
Please state your first and last name.
I'm ADRIAN MAGTIBAY.
You may be seated.
Please spell your last name for the record.
Go.
M A G T I B A Y.
Where do you work?
I own Martinez Car Sales.
What is the address of your business?
102 Main Street, Martinez.
Were you working there on February 8?
Yes, I was.
Was one of the car you had for sale a 2004 red Corvette, license number 5CBX239?
Yes.
Did you see the car on the lot on February 8?
Yes, the car was there when we closed at night.
Did you see the car again on February 9?
No, it was missing when I got to work that morning.
Where were the keys to the Corvette when you left on February 8?
They were locked in the sales office.
Where were the keys when you came back the next morning?
They were still locked in the sales office.
Did you see a file stolen car report with the police?
Yes, I did.
Had you given any more, including the defendant, permission to take or drive the Corvette?
No, I did not.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Does the defense have any question?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
The witness is excused. The prosecution may call the next witness.
You go.
The people call the arresting officer.
Please stand. Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you should give in the case before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth? So help you God.
Yes, I do.
Please state your first and last name.
I'm Patrolman MARC Villanueva.
You may be seated.
Please spell your last name for the record.
VILLANUEVA.
Stand up. Officer, where do you work?
I have worked from the Highway Patrol Group patrol for the past 10 years.
Were you on duty on the afternoon of February 9?
Yes, I was patrolling the freeway between San Ramon and Martinez.
Did you observe a red 2004 Corvette that afternoon?
Yes, I did.
What was the license number?
5C BX239.
Where did you first see the car?
Going north near the exit Highway 4.
Why did you notice the car?
It fit the description of a car which was on our list stolen vehicles.
Did you stop the Corvette?
Yes, I turned my light and siren and pulled the car over.
Where did you stop the car?
About half a mile before the downtown Martinez exit.
What did you do after the car stopped?
I ordered the driver to stop out and arrest her.
Do you see the driver here in court?
Yes, the record will show the witness as identified the defendant sitting at the defense table.
After you arrested the defendant, did you search the car?
Yes,
What did you find?
I found a set of keys in the ignition.
Are these the keys you found?
Yes.
Go.
Your Honor, I would like to have these keys marked as People Exhibit number 1 and ask that they be admitted into evidence.
Does the defense have any objection?
No, Your Honor.
The case will be admitted as People Exhibit number 1.
Officer, was there anything unusual about this case?
Yes, based on my experience as a highway patrol officer, they look like shade master keys.
Can you please tell me... Can you please tell the jury what shade master keys are?
Yes, they are keys that have been filled down so that they will start model of a type of car. They are used tools to steal cars.
I have no further questions.
Does the defense wish to ask any question?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor. Officer, when you pulled the car over, you ordered my client to turn off the ignition, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
So you saw the defendant touch the key.
Yes.
Do you know how far Martinez car sails from the downtown Martinez freeway exit?
Yes, it's all about half a mile from there.
Thank you. I have no further question.
Witness is accused. Does the prosecution have other witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The people call the fingerprint examiner.
Please spell your last name for the record. D-I-A-Z.
Stand up, Danjay. Where do you work?
I am employed by the Camp Crame Department. I have been a qualified fingerprint examiner for 10 years.
Have you ever seen this case before?
Yes, I was asked to check them for fingerprint at my lab.
Did you find any fingerprint on this case as a result of your testing?
Yes, there were several clear print impressions.
Were you able to identify the defendant's fingerprints on the case?
Yes, the prints I found on 2 of the keys were identical to the fingerprint taken from the defendant.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is AQUINO. I am a qualified fingerprint examiner and I have been so for the past 10 years. I am currently employed by the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Department and I was asked to examine these 2 keys for prints in my lab. The result of my examination is that there were identifiable prints from Mr. Virgo Soriano from both of these keys, but I also found multiple prints that did not belong to Mr. Virgo Soriano.
I have no further question. And no other witnesses, Your Honor.
Does the defense has any question?
Yes, Your Honor. Danjon, as a matter of fact, you also found fingerprints on the case which did not belong to the defendant, didn't you?
That is correct.
To whom do they belong?
I don't know.
Thank you. I have no further question.
Your Honor, the people rest their case.
Is the defense ready with its case?
Yes, Your Honor. I call the defendant.
Under the Bill of Rights, a person who is accused of a crime cannot be forced to testify at their own criminal trial, only for 8th graders. The judge would have told the jury the defendant has the right not to testify, that the prosecution cannot make any comment about it if the defendant doesn't testify, and the jury cannot hold it against the defendant or everyone. In our trial today, the defendant has decided to testify. The prosecution cannot force the defendant to testify. If the defendant chooses to testify, the prosecution is allowed to question the defendant.
Please stand. Raise your right hand. You promise that the testimony you shall give in the case now before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth. So help you God.
I do.
Please state your name.
I'm Virgo Soriano.
You may be seated.
Please spell your last name for the record.
SORIANO.
Virgo Jean, where were you on the afternoon on February 9?
I was at the 7-Eleven. The 7-Eleven store in South Street, Walnut Creek.
Did you see a 2004 red Corvette at the location?
Yes, a guy pulled in the parking lot driving it.
Did you talk to the driver?
Yes, I asked him how fast it was.
What did he say?
Yeah, I asked, he said to get the car and would show me.
What did you do then?
I got in the car and he drive into the freeway going south toward Darville. He was driving really fast.
Do you know what's the driver's name?
Yes, he told me his name was Rick.
What was his last name?
I don't know. He never told me.
Have you ever met him before?
No.
Did you tell her where he got the car?
He said he had stolen the car.
When did he tell you that?
When we are on the freeway.
How far did you ride with him?
To San Ramon, he didn't stop before then.
What happened when you reached the San Ramon?
He said he getting out, I could have the car.
Did you take the car at that time?
Yes.
Where did you go?
I started to drive to Martinez so I could return the car.
How did you know where to return it?
Rick told me he took from the car lot of Martinez.
Where were you when the officer arrested you?
On the freeway, just before the exit to downtown Martinez.
Do these keys belongs to you?
No.
Have you ever seen them before?
Yes, they were in the Corvette.
Did you touch them?
Yes, when I turned the car off, an officer stopped me.
Thank you. Thank you, VIRGO. I have no further question and no other witness, Your Honor.
Does the prosecution has any question?
Yes, Your Honor. VIRGO, what did this Adrian look like?
I don't remember actually, but he had a dark hair.
What kind of clothes was he wearing?
I'm not sure. Jeans, I think, and t-shirt.
So you just go into this car with someone that you didn't know and had never seen before?
Yes, I had never been in a Corvette before.
Did it occur to you at any time to call the police?
Sure, but there wasn't phone where I stopped, and I don't have cell phone. Once I started back, I just keep driving.
You wanted to drive the Corvette because it was a fast car, didn't you?
I guess so.
You knew the car was stolen at the time you were driving
Yes,
it, didn't you?
yes.
Thank you. I have no further question.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
To the jury, all of the evidence has now been presented at this time. The judge will tell you the law you must apply in what are called jury instructions. Listen very carefully to the three things the judge will tell you that the prosecution must prove.
I am now going to read to you the law that you must follow in this deciding case. To prove the crime charged against the defendant, the prosecution must prove three things to you. First, that the defendant drove or took the car belonging to someone else. Second, the owner did not give the defendant permission to drive or take the car. And third, that the defendant intended to take away the owner's right to have the car, either permanently or temporarily. If each of you believes that the prosecution proved all three of these things beyond a reasonable doubt, then you should find the defendant guilty. But if you believe the prosecution did not prove any one of these things beyond a reasonable doubt, then you must find the defendant not guilty. Prove beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean beyond all possible doubt. It means that You must consider all of the evidence and that you are very sure that the charge is true. Are you ready with the final arguments?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
To the jury, the final argument are the attorney's last chance to talk to the jury about the evidence and to try to convince you to see the case the way they do.
Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the judge has told you that we must prove three things. There is absolutely no question about the first two things we must prove. First, the defendant was arrested driving a car belonging to the owner of Martinez Car Sales. Second, the owner testified that no one, including the defendant, has permission to drive or take the Corvette. Therefore, all we have to prove is that the defendant drove the car and intended to keep it away from the owner for at least a little while. The defendant admitted wanting to drive the Corvette because it was fast. The defendant knew the car was stolen and says that he even thought about calling the police before driving it. But the defendant didn't even try to walk to a telephone instead of driving the car and didn't even try to stop anywhere between San Ramon and Martinez to call the police. That shows that the defendant intended to keep the car for at least a little while. According to what the judge just told you, that is all we have to prove. Based on the evidence, you must find the defendant guilty.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, VIRGO Soriano was unlucky to get into a car with a man who had stolen that car. He got into the car because he had never been in a Corvette before. My client's fingerprints were found on the keys because he had to touch them when the officer pulled the car over. But the prosecution own expert told you that the other fingerprints were found on those keys that could not be identified. I suggest to you that they belong to the real thief. ADRIAN, VIRGO Soriano is an honest person and was only trying to return the car to its owner. If he had meant to keep the car, why would he drive it back to Martinez? Remember that under the law, my client is presumed to be innocent. The prosecution must prove every part of its case beyond a reasonable doubt. That means that you must be very sure. One of the things they must prove is that my client intended to keep the car from the owner. My client is the only person knows what he intended and testified under oath that he wasn't trying to keep the car from the owner but was trying to return it. The prosecution has presented no real evidence to you to show that that is not true. That means that there is a reasonable doubt and therefore you must find him not guilty.
To the jury, the next step is the trial is when the jury decided whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty. Remember, not guilty is not the same thing as innocent. If all 12 jurors are unanimous in their decision, this is the jury verdict. You have heard several witnesses testify, including the defendant. It is up to each of you to decide if you believe a witness was telling the truth or not. You should consider how the witness behaved on the stand and use your own common sense in deciding whether or not a witness was telling the truth. Remember that it is up to the prosecution to prove the defendant is guilty. The defense does not have to prove the defendant is innocent. If the prosecution has not proven its case, then the defendant is not guilty. Must be very sure. That means that you will still be sure tomorrow or next week or next year. It does not mean any doubt. You can think up in your imagination. We won't have you leave the room right now, but we will quick pick a jury 4 person and give the jury a few minutes to see if they can reach a verdict.
Will the jury per person please stand? Stand. Has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?
Yes.
Your Honor. If the jury has reached a verdict, the clerk will get the verdict form from the foreperson and hand it to the judge. The judge will read it silently before handing it back to the clerk for the reading of the verdict.
The juries find the defendant beyond reasonable doubt guilty.
The jury is taking an excuse. The court is adjourned.